Respected Chief Controller VSSC, the guest of honor of the day, Dr. Ajayakumar Varma, members of the Standing Committee on Swachh Bharat Mission and Swachhta activities, and my dear colleagues, a very good morning to all of you. As we are aware, Vikram Sarabhai Space Center is observing Swachhta Pakhwada during 1st to 15th February 2022 as per the instructions received from the Cabinet Secretariat and the Department of Space. Swachhta Pakhwada is a fortnight-long intensive campaign on Swachhta, and the focus this year is on hygiene and sanitation. As part of this fortnight, various activities are organized in the center under the auspices of the Standing Committee on Swachh Bharat Mission and Swachhta activities, chaired by Chief Controller VSSC, Shri C. Manoj ITS, and executed under the able leadership of our beloved Director, Shri S. Somnath. The activities include mass cleaning and sanitation drives, plogging run, awareness talks, webinars, various competitions for employees and school children, waste management activities, installation of bio-toilets, cleaning of water bodies, mass fumigation, etc. etc. Due to the prevailing COVID pandemic situation, we are constrained to organize many of these activities in virtual mode. All the activities are also being held strictly in accordance with the prevailing COVID-19 protocols issued by the government from time to time. We are fortunate to have today with us an eminent and versatile personality, Dr. R. Ajayakumar Varma, retired Group Head, Atmospheric Processes, National Center for Earth Science Studies, NSES, Thiruvananthapuram, who will be delivering a talk on the topic Health, Hygiene and Sanitation, Waste Segregation at Source, SUPs, etc. Dr. R. Ajayakumar Varma took his MSc Tech in Geophysics from the Center of Exploration Geophysics, Osmania University, Hyderabad, and his PhD in the topic Geology on Sustainable Management of Groundwater in Lakshadweep Islands from the University of Kerala. He has undergone a variety of training programs in various institutions of repute both in India and abroad. His core competence lies in the areas of natural resources management, groundwater exploration, development and management, environmental impact assessment, dam break analysis and disaster management planning, sanitation and waste management, geophysical exploration, etc. He has held key positions like Group Head and Natural Resource and Environment Management Group NSES, Member Secretary of Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment, and Kerala Coastal Zone Management Authority, and Executive Director of Suchithwa Mission, Government of Kerala, to name a few. He is also a recipient of various awards such as Good Service Entry from Government of Kerala, National Water Award from Government of India for conceptualization and production of television reality show Green Kerala Express on sustainable development initiatives of local government in Kerala. Then Nirmal Gram Puraskar for Clean Villages, Government of India, among others. He is a life member of Society of Earth Scientists, Lucknow, Indian Geophysical Union, Hyderabad, and Kerala Academy of Sciences, Thiruvananthapuram. His research interests include environmental management planning, sustainable development, and geophysical exploration. On behalf of the Standing Committee and my own behalf, let me welcome all those who have assembled here today, especially our chief guest. May I now invite Dr. Ajayakumar Varma to address the VSSC community. Thank you.
My dear friends, I am extremely elated to be in this institution, which is the utmost science and technology application institute, which provide service to the entire nation, particularly to the rural communities in their development pursuits. We are today talking about the sanitation journey of India from the beginning to the day-to-day activities currently. As you all probably know, sanitation and hygiene very much a part of Indian culture, and it's intervened in Indian culture as a day-to-day practice. We had very good sanitation and hygiene practices in the earlier years, and we continue to do so. And for the last 100 years, somehow the priority that is given to sanitation was relegated. Naturally, we had paid the price for that in terms of increased disease burden, lack of cleanliness, and such other issues. You all probably also know that hygiene is basically about the cleanliness, and sanitation is process as to how we achieve cleanliness. Sanitation is therefore about the hardware that we provide, like the sewers and latrines, and it's also about the software, which talks about the regulations as well as the promotion of sanitation activities. If we look back to the sanitation history, we travel way back to AD 1214, when in the globe, in the world over, the first latrine was introduced as bucket latrines. But then to use that latrine, it was necessary that every day we remove the filth that is stored in that, and for which we used to engage manual scavengers, where we started engaging manual scavengers who were the poorest of the poor in the society. The inhuman practice of manual scavenging continued for long, and that has also started in the European countries, and then in India also it was practiced, especially in the military barracks and all initially, and then to the urban areas in India. For example, in Trivandrum, the then one of the major cities in Travancore area, we had the manual scavenging practices way back in 1900, when we first introduced the bucket latrine. The manual scavengers used to clean the bucket latrines and take the human feces to distant places for disposing it off. Such was the practices, and it was Mahatma Gandhi who first deplored the practice of manual scavenging, and then he appealed to the society to somehow get rid of manual scavenging. He even led various campaigns parallel to his movement for independence, and then at a stage he even compared, or he even said that sanitation is something which is much more important than independence. That was a sort of importance that he attributed to sanitation for the community to take it seriously. His campaign has led to telling the planners and executives about the importance of sanitation, and post-independence days in 1954, the first national water and sanitation program was launched in the country. He was not very happy prior to the independence that the way in which the government treated the sanitation sector. And even in 54, though we launched a mission, or though we launched a project, this did not go very well in various states. Kerala was to some extent an exception because of the literacy movement and educational backgrounds that we had in Kerala. And in 1981, the International Decade of Water and Sanitation, and we had to wait till that time to have a boost on sanitation movements and water supply movements in the country. We should also know that in 1981, the houses that we had with latrines was just 1% in the country, especially in the rural areas. And by 1991, because of the International Water Decade, slightly the coverage has increased. The households with latrines were almost about 10% at the national level. But then in Kerala, it was almost about 44%. Kerala, in fact, those days led the country in achieving better sanitation practices and hygiene standards. There has been various support from international agencies, as well as the government also, central government also launched various centrally sponsored schemes in the name of Central Rural Sanitation Program, etc. And we have considerable progress. By 1995, the National Health Survey reported a significant improvement in sanitation coverage to the extent of about 40% at the national level and 73% at the state level in Kerala. And Kerala had traveled very fast from 1995 onwards because of the decentralization of governance program, and thereby we launched the People's Plan campaign, which went up to the grassroots level, wherein there was somebody to hear about the problems of the people due to the lack of sanitation and drinking water supply, etc. Due to the People's Plan campaign, which went up to the remote areas of the rural villages, there used to be intensive campaigns for sanitation, and the sanitation coverage by 2001 reached almost about 95%, 98% in the urban areas and 95% in the rural areas in Kerala. By 2011, Kerala was almost near to open defecation free, but for 15 gram panchayats, which was located in the high ranges and or in the coastal areas, with a lot of technical difficulties to provide latrines of normal types. And the nation also moved very fast with total sanitation campaign then. In the urban areas, we had the city sanitation policy developed, and there was a lot of movement for sanitation coverage to be achieved in the urban areas. Along with TSC, we also introduced the Nirmal Gram Puraskar Yojana for the panchayats and panchayats. So naturally, the elected representatives in the panchayats took given a lot of importance to sanitation, and we started moving fast. And by 2014, the country achieved almost about 40% latrine coverages in the rural areas. Of course, we should understand that sanitation is a slow process. It is very difficult for people to achieve because it is their way of life. So naturally, they have to adopt whatever information, education, communication activities that we undertake. Unless and until they learn or they internalize the importance of sanitation and its linkage with their disease burden, etc., they don't adopt even if they get a toilet constructed. So that was the slow process that we were trying. But then by 2014, we had almost about 40% of the rural households covered with toilets. In the urban areas, we had better coverage. About 90% of the households were having toilet coverages. And then we launched the most important campaign, the very highly intensive campaign called Swachh Bharat Mission, which was launched on October 2nd, 2014. The intensiveness is such that the Honorable Prime Minister himself took the leadership of the campaign. Thereby, the campaign, a lot of thinkers, political leaders, the celebrities were all attracted to the campaign, which gave a very high boost to the sanitation movements in the country. Kerala, by that time, achieved, as I said earlier, achieved considerable progress in that. And by 2016, Kerala was the first bigger state to declare as open defecation free state, which was a very major achievement in the process of providing sanitation facilities. But to sustain sanitation, it's another important aspect, because one should know that sanitation is both a right as well as an obligation. Right in the sense that any citizen, to practice sanitation, to maintain the hygiene, he need to have the infrastructure achieved. And for the poor people, they need support of the government. So government had to invest money on providing latrine facilities to poor. So that right they have to get, as well as it is their responsibility or it is their obligation to maintain the hygiene standards of a latrine and use the latrine appropriately so that they keep these latrines properly, and which does not lead to diseases and increased disease burden, etc. So naturally, this it's a win-win situation to adopt right and obligation, and Kerala achieved that in November 1, 2016. And the nation went very fast, moved very fast towards achieving the target of total sanitation coverage. And by 2019, October 2nd, the nation declared as open defecation free. One should understand that it is a very, very high moment for the nation. It's almost like the VSSC community feeling the happiness of success of their space missions. It is that sort of happiness the entire community in the rural areas had when India was declared as open defecation free in 2019. But that is not enough. See, sanitation and provision of latrine is in sanitation is only one aspect of that, because sanitation is a broader spectrum activity which included many other aspects to maintain a healthy environment. So it includes the waste management that accumulates in the households and institutions, the liquid waste that get accumulated in the toilets, and other industrial waste, biomedical waste, electronic waste, and so many such type of waste. So naturally, we had to upgrade the Swachh Bharat Mission activities both in the urban areas and rural areas by incorporating the waste management activities and environmental upgradation programs in the Swachh Bharat Mission activities, along with sustaining the total sanitation that was achieved, or the open defecation free status that we achieved. So it is an immense effort that needed to be taken. All the states cooperated with the national government, because naturally the subject of sanitation is vested with the state, and it is a state to take the leadership in sanitation, and Government of India also always support any activity that is taken for sanitation by the state. And in places like Kerala, the local governments are vested with the responsibility of providing sanitation facilities, as the decentralization of administration is very much strong in such states. And as having achieved the open defecation free status, we are now moving to upgrade our waste management activities and upgradation of environment. The country is looking towards improved waste management activities. As you know, waste has become a problem for the community post 2000. Prior to 1990, waste was never a problem anywhere in India, because almost all the waste that we used to generate in the households used to be used either for the domestic animals to feed them, or in the agricultural fields as compost. And in 1990, we got introduced the plastics in a big way, and that has caused a problem for managing the household waste that we generated. Post 2000, we had severe waste management problem because of the type of waste that we used to generate, the type of plastics that used to be there, and the lack of segregation or lack of understanding on the importance of segregation of waste, etc. So the many very different types of problems we used to have, and different types of waste. The municipal solid waste that we generate at the households and institutions, the domestic waste, then the biomedical waste that is generated in the medical institutions and hospitals, the slaughter waste that we generate in the slaughterhouses, the sanitary waste that we generate in the household along with the municipal solid waste, the electronic waste that we generate at the institutions and households, etc. So different types of waste, different types of issues, and different types of practices that we need to adopt for managing this waste. So it was a tremendous problem as to how we will be able to manage. On the other side, there was another problem which was cropping up. That was about the liquid waste. Having constructed a number of toilets in the rural areas and urban areas, and we were confining all the filth in either in the twin pit latrines or single pit latrine or the septic tanks. It was stored there, and septic tanks, a part of the material used to get treated, almost about 30% treatment was happening there, but then there was some sludge remaining there, and the entire filth used to be collected in the single leach pit, whichever latrine was constructed with leach pits. Naturally, this was another major problem. So, multitudes of problems the nation was facing, and our local governments, who was entrusted by law to manage this waste, they did not have any idea as to how to go ahead with that. In 2000, under the Environment Protection Act 1986, we had the first rule which stated as to how we should manage the municipal solid waste in the country. It entrusted the local governments to collect waste from each households and institutions, and also clean the roads and public places and collect that waste, transport it to the places where it can be treated and managed or disposed. And it was their responsibility to construct waste treatment plants. And then whatever waste that could not be treated to be disposed in engineered landfills, etc. But then the local governments told at a time when they had no wherewithal or technical support or technology as to how they should go about. So the country had to put a lot of effort in developing the technology, in communicating the technology to the local governments, providing the financial support to the local governments, and training the local people, local government functionaries as to how they should be able to do this, etc. So we were traveling through very difficult phases. And but then many urban local bodies established centralized waste treatment facilities, and we started keeping bins in various places and then collecting waste and then transporting it to such centralized places and all. But almost in another 5-6 years, we realized that centrally managed plants in most of the places did not work because of the poor management initiatives that the local governments were taking. So many of the plants had to be closed down because of the poor environmental safeguards these plants were taking, and local agitations that was there. And it was there not only in Kerala, in various cities in India, many plants had to get closed down because of such environmental problems. So we had various studies on the waste as to how much waste we generate in each household, institution, etc. And we realized that in India, almost about 540 grams per head grams per capita per day of waste is generated in each household, and parallelly in Kerala sort of places it was almost about 300 grams per day per person. So this is the waste that need to be managed. So if you put all together, every day Kerala generates about 10,000 tons per day of waste in our 941 gram panchayats and about 86 urban local bodies, and similarly about 3 lakh tons of waste per day in the entire nation, distributed in all the ways. So this is to be managed. What is the way out? How to manage it? So this is a major problem that the country is facing. But here again, Kerala led a campaign which was a model to the nation as well, and of late the nation also adopted the model that Kerala has developed. Kerala found that whatever centralized facility that we established in Trivandrum or in Thrissur or in Ernakulam failed to operate because of poor management practices and the difficulties to collect waste from each household, and also the waste being mixed with plastics, etc., and the difficulties to treat such mixed waste, etc. So we learned that segregation of waste is very important. The characteristics of different types of waste is very important, and the technology that need to be used for different types of waste is important. So we suggested the people, the households and institutions where the waste is generated to segregate the waste, and many people started adopting that. It's not that 100% people adopts that even today, but then many people started adopting that. Thereby the waste is segregated into mainly into 3 parts. One is the wet waste, that is essentially biodegradable waste which get degrading within 24 hours or so, and non-biodegradable waste or dry waste such as plastics or paper or wooden pieces and such other type of material which doesn't degrade fast, and also some of the domestic hazardous waste like bulbs, the glass pieces, and also the sanitary waste like diapers, the needles, emptied medicine bottles, the leftover medicines, etc. So different types of medicine had to be managed at the households and institutions, and also some of the people used to throw waste to the street side, so naturally it had to be collected and treated. So having found that the characteristics of waste has to be taken into consideration for managing the waste, the Kerala came out with a sort of management techniques called overflow waste management techniques, because of the statistics that we have collected. We found that the municipal solid waste that we generate in the state, almost about 49%, 50% of that is biodegradable in nature, like mainly the food waste or garden waste. And about 19% of the waste is like plastics and biodegradable, non-biodegradable type of waste, dry waste. Rest of the waste is mostly mixed waste with inert and all, like soil and all, which we get from sweeping the street and all. Similarly, we also found that 50% of the waste is generated at the household level, and about 20% is generated in various institutions like government offices or hostels or hotels or marketplaces and such other point sources. So, since dominant part of waste is biodegradable in nature and mainly it is generated at point sources, we found that, and these biodegradable waste need to be handled within 24 hours, otherwise it gets putrefied. So, naturally there will be problems because of the worms and all will start growing in that. There will be flies, it will start creating problem, increasing the vector and also increasing the disease burden and etc. So, naturally it had to be managed within 24 hours of time. So, we felt that it is important that the waste is managed within 24 hours, and since majority of the waste is biodegradable in nature, earlier I said 50 which was wrong, it's about 72%. So, majority of the waste, about 72%, is to be wasted within 24 hours, and 80% of which is generated at point sources. Naturally, we thought that we should find a way as to how we will be able to manage it at source itself. So, if we are able to manage the waste at source, biodegradable waste at source, naturally almost about 70-75% of the problem of waste is sorted out. Then the rest of the waste, that is dry waste, we are able to store it, and slowly we can do something about it for recycling or disposing and whatever we need to do with that. So, there we started operating the overflow waste management option, which talk about having facilities at the households and institution where the biodegradable waste that is generated there will be managed using appropriate technologies. And if at all some of the houses or some of the institutions cannot manage or cannot establish a facility there, then that will overflow from there, and we can have decentralized facilities established by the local governments where we can treat it. Or if there is further overflow, then we can have a centralized facility. So, thereby the stress on the centralized facilities reduced considerably, and similarly for the decentralized facilities, and most of the problems will be sorted out at the household level or the institutional level. So, thereby the problem of biodegradable waste, which is the most important waste to be handled because it creates quite a lot of problem within 24 hours, will be sorted out in this way. So, that was a major sort of procedure that we developed. So that we started building up, creating, strengthening the local governments in providing facilities to local people in collecting, segregating the waste at the households itself, and keeping the biodegradable waste, non-biodegradable waste and domestic hazardous waste separately, and then asking them to adopt some simple methods to treat the biodegradable waste. So we looked at the technology. So we did not have to go for intensive research and anything, because for time immemorial our agriculturals used to use compost as a method of making manure from the biodegradable materials like leaves and all, dry leaves, wet leaves, all these things, and also cow dung, etc. So same technology we started adopting. The technology has a very high advantage of having with a high level of scaling, like we can practice at the technology at the household level, as well as we can go to bigger plants where we can handle even 300 or 500 tons of waste per day. So such is the versatility of that composting technology. We started adopting that at the household and institutional level. Similarly, we can also adopt the biogas technology, which also we knew about it for a long time. and wherein we get the advantage of having the biogas for cooking purposes, etc. And with manure generated from composting or vermicomposting using worms, and also the biogas generated from biogas plants, etc. All these things could be utilized at the household level or at the institutional level, and the waste also get managed at that level. Thereby, the problem of waste carried over to the decentralized level or centralized level is reduced, and which provided a very sustainable model to the entire nation. And now the country is adopting that sort of model in a big way. And similarly, we had the dry waste, which is also a problem because plastics, as you know, if we throw the plastics into the soil, naturally the microplastics develops and it gets into our groundwater and surface water and ultimately gets into our body, leading to carcinogenic issues and things like that. And also, if it is accumulated at some place, people used to burn that, releasing toxic gases like furan or such other gases, creating problems. And so these problems had to be overcome. So naturally, we developed a model to collect the waste from each household and keep it in a material collection facility. And from there, it could be taken to a resource recycling facility established at the block level, wherein plastic could be segregated, woods could be segregated, the paper could be segregated, and then all these things thereby increasing their value of recycling, and it could go to appropriate recycling plants and it could get recycled. So this model is also being adopted at the national level now. Many of the blocks are now establishing the resource recovery facilities in various blocks. Thereby, the dry waste could be taken, and these dry waste are it can fetch very considerable money as well, because you know the coconut shells, which could be burned and generate charcoal, which is one of the most important raw material that is used, or the material that is used for cleaning water. So it is a high demand material which could be used for cleaning water. Similarly, coconut husk is used for coir making. Similarly, plastics is recycled and for again making many plastic materials, etc. So these recycled materials have high use, and our new paper manufacturing is also depending on the recycled papers. Like de-inking plants are coming up. Even we have a de-inking plant right in Kerala, in the Paravam, where we have a paper plant which is now restarting its production, etc., where we have a de-inking plant where all the used papers could be recycled. So such are the uses of these materials, and it could fetch money and also provide significant opportunity for various recycling industries. So this is the way in which we are progressing now, and wherein we have used the concept of right to sanitation and obligation of sanitation to the people, and understanding that and adopting the sort of technology, sort of facilities that they have achieved in a responsible manner in managing the toilets, as well as in taking up the waste and managing it, etc. So the country is progressing towards not only towards sustaining the open defecation free status, as well as generating environment friendly places with very high hygiene standards, etc., which we will see in another 5-6 years. There will be considerable progress that we will be achieving if we are able to take up the mission of Swachh Bharat in a way as we were handling it for the last 5-6 years. So this message is not only for the country, it is for each of one who have to exercise our responsibility in collecting the waste which is generated either in the households or in the institution, segregate it, and whatever biodegradable waste is there, we should create a facility of composting facility to manage the waste right in the household or in the institution, so that the waste that we generate is not a problem for others. So whatever pollution that we generate is we ourselves pay, or we ourselves take a lead in handling that pollution. So this message each of us should inculcate in our mind and act accordingly. If we do so without much difficulty, the country will go to a very environment friendly, very hygienic, very clean, with high purity level, the sort of activities that are taken up under the Swachh Bharat mission is expected to take India to a very high hygiene standard. Thank you very much.
Respected Director VSSC, Chief Controller, DD MSc, Senior Head PGA, and my dear friends, a warm good morning to one and all. During this fortnight of Swachhta Pakhwada being organized by VSSC, one of the activity identified was to conduct talk on virtual mode by eminent personality on the subject health, hygiene and sanitation. To grace the occasion, we have with us Dr. Ajayakumar Varma, an eminent personality who was the Executive Director of Suchithwa Mission Kerala and also the Planning Board member of Clean Kerala in its initial stages. He has held many key positions in different organizations in central and state government. He in his talk has highlighted the history of sanitation in India, especially in Kerala, and its progress and achievements till date. He also emphasized the necessity of maintaining sanitation in day-to-day life for a healthy environment. Moving on to my assigned duty, I express my sincere thanks on behalf of myself and Swachhta Committee to Director VSSC, Chief Controller, DD MSc, Senior Head PGA for their valuable advice and guidance. Thank you very much, sir. On this occasion, I should mention our Head PGA Suresh sir, who was the driving force behind the conduct of this event. On behalf of the committee and on behalf of myself, I thank you very much, sir. Thanks to our chief guest of the day, Dr. Ajayakumar Varma, on contacting him over phone. Even in this pandemic situation, he agreed to deliver a talk and he is here with us. I, on behalf of myself and the committee, thank you very much, sir, for enlightening us with your experience and thoughts. I thank all of you, the viewers. Without your viewing and listening to this talk, this would not be a success. I take the opportunity to thank all the network, photography, canteen, transport, CMG team, and all others, not to mention each name by name, for their support extended. Last but not the least, I take the opportunity to thank my team, the GAD team, for their unconditional support. Once again, thank you all.